Secret files show why Ronald Reagan was the only person who could understand Margaret Thatcher. And images of the year, some of the top 2012 photography from Reuters. We start though with our digit of the day, 11. The 11th hour approaches as President Obama and US lawmakers launch a last chance round of budget talks before a New Year's deadline to reach a deal that will prevent the economy from going off the fiscal cliff. There will be a meeting at the White House at 3 p.m. Eastern today to avoid tax hikes and spending cuts. Top Democrat Senator Harry Reid says it looks like we're going over that cliff, a view shared by Hill Townsend Capital's Gary Townsend.
I think a cliff dive is almost certain. That Congress, the Senate, the House, and the President can't resolve the fiscal cliff before the end of the year.
Not everybody's abandoned hope, but a small but growing number are now suggesting Congress might try to stretch the deadline into the first 2 days of January. Well, fiscal cliff worries capping gains in Asian shares today, while here in Europe, spread bettors see stocks opening flat to slightly higher. Lisa Yuriko Thomas is in Singapore. Lisa, shares not doing so well in Asia, but not so Japan.
Right. Well, Japanese stocks, they've actually been on fire. The Nikkei climbed to a 20-month high, rising 23% this year, much of that in the last several weeks. It's the best yearly gain since 2005. It really boils down to expectations of further easing by the new prime minister and the weaker yen, which is at a 2-year low against the dollar. Exporters like Toyota and Canon are a few of the best performers, and some analysts seem to think we haven't seen the end of the rally yet. Jamie?
You mentioned the new Prime Minister, of course, Shinzo Abe, just elected. He's going to try to turn the economy around, but figures today showing that might not be quite so straightforward.
Right. All of this adds pressure to the new prime minister to deliver quick results. Japanese manufacturing PMI for December declined at its fastest pace in over 3 years, while November factory output slumped. This gives Shinzo Abe more ammunition to push for big spending plans and easy money. But some economists warn this could just be a short-term fix. They do expect growth to pick up in early 2013, but only at a slow and modest pace.
Lisa, thank you very much. Well, that was the view from Asia. Let's get the view now from Europe, and I'm joined by Christopher Beecham, market analyst at IG. Chris, the fiscal cliff, let's start with this. If we do go over it, what should investors be doing on January 2nd when markets open?
We're very much in the realm of the unknown come January the 2nd if we do go over the cliff. But the likelihood is that we'll see the sort of classic risk-off response from investors, at least in the very short term. There'll be a movement away from risky assets such as equities and towards the traditional safe havens, although perhaps we might not see the move to treasuries, that being slightly ruled out given the fiscal cliff issues. So that's the sort of immediate move. But looking forward into the near term, we might see some confidence return, perhaps as investors realise that it's perhaps not as bad as first thought.
OK, now that's in the days and the weeks following, but what about 2013 as a whole? The last couple of years have generally been risk on or risk off. Is that going to play out again in 2013, do you think?
Well, it seems towards the last few weeks of this year we've had a shift away from that, and perhaps investors are starting to realise that running from one place to another like a herd is not the best response to these various crises, and that now a sort of more discerning stock picking approach might be the theme for 2013. In that vein, perhaps you're looking for decent outperforming companies with sensible broad-based businesses both in emerging markets and in the developed world. Good examples of those being Whitbread and Diageo, Associated British Foods, are three there which have done very well this year and could continue to do well into the next year.
OK, and just in terms of today's events, not much, but we did have revised French GDP, revised down in Q3, and we have an Italian bond auction. Just give us your thoughts on them.
It's just a few little tidbits of news to keep us going apart from the fiscal cliff. Yes, the French GDP weaker as expected, practically no growth at all for the third quarter. And whilst we've got that Italian bond auction, 5 and 10 year today, we saw yields tick up slightly at yesterday's auction, but that's just sort of a reflection of rather investor nervousness as this Monti issue plays out. Will he, won't he stand in the election in the coming year? OK, Chris, thank you very much. In other news today, secret documents reveal close US-British ties during the Falklands conflict. Former Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher wrote an impassioned letter to President Ronald Reagan, calling him the only person who would understand her during the 1982 war. She called the build-up to the Argentine invasion the worst of her life and stressed the importance of the friendship between the US and Britain for the future of the free world. And Norman Schwarzkopf has died. The US Army general led the 1991 war against Iraq, capping a 34-year military career. Known to his troops as Stormin' Norman,
His outflanking of Saddam Hussein's forces has been hailed as one of the great accomplishments in military history. That's it for now, but I'll leave you with our pick or picks of the day. Some of the best images of 2012 taken by Reuters photographers, highlighting the key stories of the year. The escalating conflict in Syria, the devastation of Hurricane Sandy, the 2012 Olympics here in London, civil unrest over Greek austerity measures, and the re-election of President Barack Obama. See all 98 photos now on Reuters.com. I'm Jamie McGeever. This is Reuters.